grab a seat, because this isn't your average heartbreak story. It starts in the middle of someone else's party and ends with me rewriting everything I believed about her. It wasn't even my event. I just happened to be standing near the champagne table when I saw her. Darla Halson, my ex, wearing silver heels that clicked like punctuation marks across the marble floor. Same laugh, same sideways smirk, but different eyes. Colder. Or maybe just more satisfied. And him. Some guy with hair that looked moisturized? I don't know. The kind of guy who puts cologne behind his knees. He stood behind her like a prop, holding a wine glass he hadn't even sipped. I hadn't seen Darla since she told me I didn't deserve her, that I was too disposable. And yeah, I left. Quietly. With whatever pieces of self-respect I hadn't dropped on the sidewalk that day. I didn't scream or ask her to stay. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still hearing that sentence on loop every time I looked in the mirror. Anyway, that night, at the reunion, I didn't expect her to notice me. I mean, I was standing there alone, holding a half-eaten shrimp puff, and my name tag had peeled off and landed in someone's wine. And then she walked straight toward me. Not around me. Right at me. She didn't say hi. She didn't ask how I was. She said this. "You're not supposed to be here." I blinked. "It's a public reunion." She stepped closer. "I RSVP'd thinking you'd never show your face again." I could feel the heat creeping up my neck, the same pathetic, sweaty anxiety I always got around her. I was about to mutter something dumb like, "You look nice," but then I remembered the thing in my pocket. The folded piece of hotel stationery. I pulled it out, smoothed it on the table, and slid it under her glass without a word. Just 2 sentences were written on it. "You were right. I didn't deserve you. But he doesn't know what you did, does he?" Her face drained. She looked at me, then at her new boyfriend, then back at the note like it was ticking. What did she think I knew? Why was she panicking? That's when I realized I didn't come here to win her back. I came to find out what she'd been hiding when she walked away. And I was closer than ever. The glass didn't shatter, but the silence around her did. Darla's fingers trembled as she lifted the wine glass, only to fumble and nearly knock it over as she tried to hide the note underneath. But it was too late. Her boyfriend, I think his name was Tyrell or Tyven, something rich and symmetrical, reached across with curious eyes and picked it up before she could stop him. I didn't move. I didn't need to. I already saw her panic, and that was enough. But I wasn't expecting him to read it out loud. "You were right. I didn't deserve you. But he doesn't know what you did, does he?" He read it twice, slowly, like trying to decode something more than words. Then he looked at her. Really looked. "What does this mean?" he asked, and his voice was tight, measured, like a guy used to controlling conversations suddenly finding himself outside the script. Darla didn't answer. Her eyes flitted around the room like she was searching for a fire exit or an alternate timeline. For a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. Instead, I took a sip of flat soda and watched her unravel. I knew I didn't have long. She was too good at flipping the narrative. Too sharp with lies that sounded like confessions. But right now, in this 5-second pause, I had leverage I never had when we were together. Because she didn't know how much I knew, and the not knowing made her twitch. Tyrell, or whatever his perfect name was, stepped aside with the note still in his hand. "Darla, we're not leaving until you tell me what he's talking about," he said. That made her freeze. And that silence? That was new. The Darla I knew always had a comeback loaded. A way to turn the tables and make me feel crazy for asking obvious questions. But now she just stood there, quiet. Not out of guilt. She was never the guilty type, but because she didn't know which lie to lead with. I could have left right then and let the chaos unfold. But I didn't. I stepped closer and said, "You told me I was boring, that I didn't make you feel alive. But you left out the part where you were already messaging him. The part where you begged your ex-professor to write you a fake reference to get out of our city. Should I keep going?" Her face went ghost white. And Tyrell, or maybe now, just Ty, didn't say a word. He just stared at her like she was a stranger. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the smallest person in the room. I hadn't come to the reunion to ruin her life. That's the part no one believes when I tell this story, but it's true. I didn't have a plan or some dramatic speech rehearsed in the mirror. I didn't bring the note thinking I'd read it out loud in front of the guy she replaced me with. I wrote it at the hotel an hour earlier, more out of spite than strategy, folded it twice, and shoved it in my pocket without knowing if I'd even see her up close. And yet here we were, me standing there in my ill-fitting sport coat from a clearance rack, and her, suddenly exposed in the one place she'd come to be adored. Because that's what this reunion was for Darla, a grand stage. She'd always told me college was the only place she ever felt like royalty. Everyone knew me there, she once said, sipping her organic smoothie like a queen reflecting on her golden ring. They still talk about me, I guarantee it. And maybe they did. But they weren't talking about her now. Not the way she wanted. I could feel the air shift in the room. We weren't the center of attention. Not yet, but the whispers had started. A couple near the piano stopped mid-laugh. A woman who used to be in Darla's dorm glanced over, then leaned toward her husband. Something was unraveling, and it wasn't because of anything I said. It was because she wasn't denying it. Not one word. Tyrell still held the note. I watched his fingers flex over the paper like he was debating whether to crumple it or save it as evidence. Is this true? He finally asked again, his tone flatter now, not angry but cold. She opened her mouth, then closed it. That silence was louder than a confession. That's when a voice behind me said, "Wait, Darla Halson?" I turned, and a woman in a rust-colored dress stared at us with wide eyes. "You're the one who got Mr. Benton fired, right?" The entire room felt like it stopped breathing. Darla's eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed fast. "Excuse me," she snapped. "I don't know who you are, but you don't." "Oh no. You're her," the woman said, stepping forward. "I was a freshman when it happened. You accused him of stalking you, right? But didn't he end up in the hospital?" My stomach dropped. What? That wasn't the version I knew. That wasn't what she told me. I'd heard stories, sure, vague mentions of some inappropriate teacher and how she took care of it. But a hospital? And suddenly, all I could do was stare at Darla and wonder how much of my entire relationship had been a carefully constructed lie. You could hear it in the way the woman said it. "You're her." Not, "You knew about it," or "You heard the rumors." No, she said it like someone naming the villain in a true crime documentary. Darla froze, and not in the flustered, fake outrage way she usually did when called out. No performative sighs or forced tears this time. Just pure, flat panic. She took a small step back, brushing into Tyrell's arm, but he didn't budge. He was still staring at her like she was a shape he couldn't quite recognize anymore. I felt glued in place. I hadn't even heard the full story yet, but something about the woman's tone, her sharpness, the way she said, "Got him fired," like it was code for something darker. I just knew this wasn't going to end with a simple apology. He wasn't stalking her, the woman went on. He was mentoring her. I was in the creative writing club. She'd show up late, flirt with him in front of everyone. And then, one day he's gone. The department said it was personal leave. 2 weeks later, someone found him in his car with an empty bottle of sleeping pills. My breath caught. I looked at Darla. She was staring at the floor now, like maybe if she didn't meet anyone's eyes, the moment would vanish. But it didn't. The silence got heavier. "He survived," the woman added, softer now. "But he never came back. Everyone just forgot." I felt cold all over. Darla had told me he was inappropriate, that he'd sent her late-night emails, crossed boundaries, that she reported him and he left before things got worse. I believed her. I defended her when people said otherwise. I'd once called her brave for speaking up. But now, the way she stood there, not denying a single word, the way her hands clenched like someone about to lash out, not cry, it all painted a different picture. One I wasn't ready to admit I'd missed. "That's not how it happened," she finally said, but it sounded like she didn't even believe herself. Tyrell didn't speak. He just handed her the note back, like it was radioactive. "I'll be outside," he muttered and walked away. And just like that, the shiny, polished life she'd built, new boyfriend, perfect reputation, confident stride, it all started to crack. Not because I exposed her, but because she'd built everything on a story that was never true. And I was only now realizing how much of my life she'd built on the same lies. I left the ballroom without even realizing it. My legs moved on their own. The air inside had become too heavy. The stares, the half-heard whispers, the ticking silence that always follows the unraveling of a carefully curated lie. I ended up in the parking lot, standing under a crooked streetlight that flickered like it couldn't decide whether to expose me or let me disappear. I leaned against my car, barely breathing. The taste in my mouth was bitter, not from confrontation, but from knowing how deeply I'd let myself be fooled. I remembered sitting with Darla once, years ago, on a cheap IKEA couch, watching her cry about that professor. She said she felt violated, scared, and I held her like she was shattered glass, fragile and dangerous. I believed her. I defended her. I thought I was some kind of emotional anchor. Turns out I was just the one who held the umbrella while she set the fire. I heard her heels before I saw her. Always those damn heels. Sharp little reminders of how loud she could be when she wanted the world's attention. She stood there on the edge of the lot, not walking closer yet. "You didn't have to do that," she said finally, her voice small but not broken. Not apologetic. Just controlled. "I didn't do anything," I said. "You did this. You could have denied it. You could have explained it. But you froze. You always knew the truth would catch up. I just happened to be there when it did." She stepped closer, arms folded like a defense mechanism, like maybe she still thought she could charm her way back into the driver's seat. "You don't understand," she said. "That woman, she's twisting it. There's context. Things were more complicated than they looked." But I'd heard that line before. It was the same one she used when she left me. When she said I was a phase. When she claimed she needed something else, but never had the guts to say she'd already found someone new. Was I complicated too? I asked. Or just convenient? That hit her. She blinked, just once, but it was enough. Enough for me to see the panic return. "You're not who I thought you were, Darla," I said. "But worse, I'm not who I thought I was either. I thought I was just boring. Turns out I was blind." She didn't speak after that. Just stood there under the failing streetlight while I got into my car. For the first time, I didn't drive away wishing she'd run after me. I didn't want her to chase me. I wanted her to think about chasing me and realize I was already gone. I thought that night in the parking lot would be the last page in our story. I thought I'd finally close the book on Darla and everything she'd taken from me. But some chapters write themselves even after you think the ink's dry. It was 3 days later when I got the message. A blocked number, no name, just a text at 2:14 a.m. that said, "You should see this." Attached was a screenshot, an alumni group chat from the reunion. Someone had posted a blurry photo of me and Darla standing under the streetlight. The caption read, "When lies finally meet consequences." There were over 100 replies. I scrolled through each one, my fingers cold, heart pounding. People were telling stories I'd never heard. A former roommate said Darla spread a rumor that got another student put on academic probation. A woman from her marketing class claimed Darla once faked an assault to get out of a final. And the worst one? A quiet comment from someone simply calling themselves CBenin82. All it said was, "You can lie to the world for years, but some things don't stay buried." That was him. It had to be him. Mr. Benton, the professor. Alive. Still watching. Still holding the truth like a stone in his palm. I stared at the screen for a long time. I should have felt vindicated, even smug. But I didn't. I felt hollow. Because I'd spent years mourning a relationship that never really existed. I'd built my pain around the idea that I wasn't enough for someone who, deep down, never even existed the way I believed she did. It was like realizing you'd spent years crying over a ghost someone else invented. But here's the part one didn't see coming. The second message. Same blocked number. No text this time, just a photo. A handwritten letter addressed to me. "Emery, if you're reading this, it means you know more than I ever wanted you to. I didn't want to be that person, but I was. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I never told you the truth because I knew you'd forgive me. That's what scared me the most." My hands shook as I read it again and again. She never sent it. Someone else did. And whoever that person was, they weren't finished with me yet. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding my phone like it might buzz again, like maybe the ghost behind the blocked number would decide to speak instead of haunt. I kept rereading the photo of the letter, the shaky handwriting, the way her name was never signed but somehow screamed through every sentence. But the more I read it, the more something felt off. Darla wasn't the type to write apologies, not even performative ones. She didn't reflect, she revised. She spun narratives. She crafted realities that made her look like the misunderstood protagonist. But this letter? It wasn't an apology. It was a confession with no exit strategy. The line that hit me the hardest wasn't even the one about fear. It was the last one, half smudged, like it had been written with a shaking hand. "If this ever comes out, don't believe everything you hear about me, but believe enough." What did that even mean? Was she trying to control the damage, even in written form? Or was it a buried warning, disguised as guilt? I couldn't tell, but I knew someone else could. I drove out to the edge of town that morning, to the one person I hadn't spoken to in years. Claire, Darla's former roommate. The only person who'd ever told me, years ago, that Darla was a little more calculating than she seemed. I'd ignored her then, thought she was jealous, or bitter, or both. But now, I was ready to listen. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. No shock, no smile, just a tired nod, and a "you finally figured it out, huh?" We sat in her kitchen while her dog sniffed my shoes like it remembered me, then walked away unimpressed. Claire poured coffee without asking and placed a folder in front of me. She gave me the letter, she said. 4 months ago, told me not to open it unless you ever showed up at the reunion. My mouth went dry. She planned for this? Claire nodded. She plans for everything, Emery. You just never noticed. I opened the folder. Inside was another letter. Same handwriting, different tone. This one wasn't to me, it was to him. Tyrell, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't lie fast enough. Don't let the whispers change your mind. I only did what I had to. I looked up at Claire, and her expression was grave. She wrote you both letters. One for guilt, one for manipulation. She didn't know who would survive the fallout, so she tried to keep control either way. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe, because that meant Darla knew this day would come. She counted on it. And suddenly, I wasn't the victim in a love story anymore. I was just one more name in her contingency plan. For the first time in my life, I wasn't second-guessing myself. Not because I had all the answers, but because I finally stopped searching for them in someone else's eyes. After reading both letters, mine and Tyrell's, I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel betrayed anymore. What I felt was something I hadn't felt since the day she told me I didn't deserve her. Clarity. Darla wasn't evil. She wasn't a monster. But she was someone who built her life around shaping the truth to suit her survival. And I was just collateral. A placeholder. A loyal pair of hands she didn't think would ever let go. But I did. That day, sitting in Claire's kitchen, I realized the best revenge wasn't exposing her. It wasn't watching her panic under flickering lights or lose her grip in front of her perfect boyfriend. The best revenge was not needing any of it anymore. I folded both letters, gave them back to Claire, and said, I don't need these. She smiled a little. You sure? I nodded. Let him figure out what he wants to believe. That's not my problem anymore. I walked out of that house not as some triumphant hero, but as someone finally free. For months, maybe years, I thought closure would come with some dramatic truth bomb or public humiliation. But closure came quietly. It came when I stopped thinking her version of me was the truth. And now? Now I've moved to a new town. Different job. Smaller place, but peaceful. I still overthink things. I still apologize too often. But I don't wait for someone to tell me what I'm worth. I decide that now. On my own. Funny how the woman who once told me I was too safe ended up burning every bridge behind her, while I was the one who finally walked forward, without needing to burn anything at all. If you've ever experienced a moment where the truth finally freed you, even if it came too late, we'd love to hear about it. Comment below. What's one shocking historical event that changed how you see the world? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. We'll see you next time.